This is my experience as a deaf mother. I've got 4 children. My eldest 3 children are deaf and my 4th child is hearing. When my first child was born deaf, that was 26 years ago, at that time the deaf community was quite strong and I was involved with the deaf community, so having a deaf baby was fine. I had the connections within the deaf community, so that was no worries. And then fast forward to my second child, which was 13 years ago, and there was a big difference compared with my first child. 13 years ago, a lot had changed. There was a school system and deaf society had all changed. Deaf children were all spread out, and it was quite frustrating for me as a deaf mother with a deaf child. I didn't know what the future would hold for them. I was worried about how they would get the access they needed. I knew their upbringing wouldn't be the same as mine. I was heavily involved in the deaf community and I had people who looked after me and I had role models to look up to and people who guided me. And who would my child have? I began to worry about that. And there are things like cochlear implants and hearing aids and audiologists now, which can help, and that's great, but everything had changed. My thinking for my child and their future, I started to wonder, would they be involved with a hearing world and be oral and get them involved in that pathway, or should I lead them more down the deaf pathway? It was really hard. And then my third child was born and it was even harder. That was 11 years ago. My child was profoundly deaf. My second child could access hearing aids, but my third child was profoundly deaf. So navigating that was really hard. There was early intervention through the Sydney Cochlear Implant Centre. It made it even harder. There was a big struggle with them. They looked at us as, a deaf parent with a deaf child. But I wanted to give my daughter every opportunity to learn and grow and develop and have access to those technologies. But they said, oh no, you're a deaf parent with a deaf child. Just go home and use sign language, that should be enough. And I felt really disempowered. I wanted my child to have access to those technologies. Other children had that access, but my child didn't, and that was a bit of a struggle. And then my 4th child was born hearing. And for those people, they started to realise that a deaf child can thrive with deaf parents within a deaf family. And then we started an early intervention program. They wanted to do speech therapy and things like that, but I said, please, I don't want that for my child. I don't believe in trying to teach my child to speak. I'd rather them focus on, learning through play and not be forced into trying to learn speech and things like that. And it was really hard for them to understand. And I had a lot of barriers, there was a lot of frustrations, but we got there in the end, and now my children have grown up a bit more. And looking back, it was hard. I did have to advocate for them, and I still have to, and it can be really frustrating. But I'm really lucky my children are happy, healthy, they have their own identities, and they can be, and my third child can be involved in both the hearing and the deaf world. I know there'll be challenges in the future, of course, but life as a deaf mother is really not that simple. There are, it's not all picture perfect, it is hard, but that's how it is, and that's my story.